Welcome back to the shop for another one of our Big Tire Garage weekly shop updates. This week's going to be a little bit crazy because we've got a lot going on. I know that I said that I had all the front suspension done on the Bomber, but I forgot something. I forgot that I needed to put bump cans on this front axle. And so I'm going to start with that. Then I think I'm actually going to go ahead and do my engine skid because I think it's going to be a lot easier with the chassis on the table, because the table will actually hold the engine in place. I don't have to worry about it getting cut loose there. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll pull it off the table. I got some filming to do later this week for Motor Trend, so I'll give you some behind the scenes stuff on that. And then I have a special project that I may jump on a little bit later today. But we're going to start with the bump kits. Bump cans are now done. What I actually did is I put this piece of 1.5 by 3 across the top, just resting on the top of each bump can to make sure that they were level, and you can see they're like 0.1 degree away. I had to step the bump cans up a little bit higher on this axle. You can see I had to stack, like this was my original spacer that I used in the back, and I had to add an additional 1.5 inches and then a 1/4 inch piece of steel. And that is because on this side of the axle you can see the bump is actually going to hit on the edge of the housing. So this bump will actually hit right here. So what I'll end up doing is building a little landing pad that'll come off here and come down and basically cap that in, and then I'll have to do the same on the other side. I'll have to build some type of landing pad for this bump that'll basically come up off the axle about, 1 3/4 inches up, and then across and then down for the bump to land on. And that's just because the other option was to push this bump really far out on both sides, and I didn't like the look of that. I kind of like them tucked in tight to the chassis. So now it's time to move on to the engine cage. I'm going to cut these tubes out, unbolt these plates, redo these plates completely, and then we'll go from there. Got my tube in my Rogue Fab bender. I really like this bender. I upgraded a little while ago to the stand and then the electric over hydraulic pump, which makes a huge difference in it. Basically, I know where I want my bend to be. I've measured back from the cross member to where I want the actual bend to be is at 32 inches. I've cut a piece that's 48 inches long. The offset on this bender is 6 inches. that means that basically I take the difference between 48 and 32, and that's 16. And then if I measure from this clamp back to here, that means there's a 6 inch. That means from here out, I need 10 inches from there out. That means that that'll be 10 plus 6, which is 16, which will put that bend right where I want it at 32. I've cut it long, so I'll obviously have to trim and notch this end, and then obviously this end has to get cut to fit onto that engine plate. But that's just how you calculate where you want the bend to know. You need to know what your offset is. Nice thing about this Rogue bender is it actually came with all these stickers. I actually built this bender. I'll put a link to the video up right now, but I basically built this bender, and then it actually came with all these stickers, so I know what the offset is for every single one of my my dies right now. It's going to be a pretty steep bend. It's not going to be 90, but I'm probably going to stop at around 80 and then take a look at it. The engine skid tube is now in. This basically comes down and goes back. It goes all the way back to this cross member right here. This will also be where this inner tab is attached. So we'll drop a tab off of this bolt and we'll go down and it'll bolt on right there. And this will give us good double shear strength for this trailing arm with this outer one. Eventually I'll come across. Basically I'll go out, over, and back into the tube I'm going to put on the other side. I put the header on that I'm using, and I'm glad that I did, because originally I was just going to run a tube straight from that engine skid tube right up to here, but you can see this primary tube is in the way. So I am going to have to come off here and then come up here still somehow, getting around all of this stuff, but staying away from this link. It's going to be tight. I think what I'll probably end up doing is dropping down to some 1.5" tubing maybe, and then just coming straight down and picking it up a little bit lower, and then I'll just add a gusset. I won't focus so much on picking up the actual plate with the tube. I'll just pick up this tube, come from tube to tube, and then add a gusset in there if I think it needs it. But like that, there is our new engine skid input. I know I've said this a few times, but there's one more, just one more. There's always one more thing on a tube buggy. One more thing I want to do before I pop this off the table. I went ahead and redid these upper link mounts on the chassis side, because I have my new engine cage in place now, and I was able to make sure that I have plenty of clearance for those. It's tight. It is tight, but these will be made out of 2-inch. This is 1.5", so I need at least a 1/4 inch on our side, and I got more than that all the way through there. And I want to go ahead and cap the bottom of these, and I want to show you the process of basically going from a cardboard idea over to the plasma table and cutting it out. So it's going to start by basically measuring this, and actually I think I might be able to get away with just measuring this one. So I was going to measure that, no cardboard cat at all needed on this one. So we start with just measuring this. Get the camera up in the right spot here so you can see what I'm measuring. So I'm going to measure down this. I made these flat because I knew I was going to cap them. We want to make sure there's room for the heim, which there is. basically take a straight edge, some type of straight edge, cut across. You can see there's plenty of room for that heim joint. It is tight, but there is room. The heim's not going to hit the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from there to there, from there to there, and then that'll give me, and then I'll have a straight edge comes across here, and then I'll pump in a quarter. I'll put a little dome in it, and we'll go like that. So let's grab the tape measure. And we're gonna go. It's 3 3/4. That one is 2 3/4. So it's 2 3/4, 3 3/4. I know the spread is supposed to be 2 5/8, which that one is, which that's what you want to make it for, because you want that spread to be the same all the way across, like that. So the only thing that's going to be weird is if I make this, so if you look right here, straight across there, it's 2 5/8 there. These two are straight, so it's this end is going to stay straight. That end's going to have the angle on it. Okay, so we're going to start in Bentech. I'm going to start with a sheet metal plate creation here. I'll make this full screen just so it's easy to see. So Bentech uses a series of pick points. The x-axis is your left to right. The y-axis is your top to bottom. And if we were working with a CNC router or a mill or a lathe, your z-axis would be the in and out from the screen. But since we're just working with a flat plate, we're just going to worry about the x and y. So we know that we want this to be 2.625 wide. So that is going to be the width of our tab right there. We also know that one side is 2 3/4 of an inch, so 2.75, and the other side is 3 3/4 inch. So when you're working in this software, basically you can select the reference point whenever you are. So this one, this was where I started, so I did my width, then I did the height of that tab. Now for the height of this tab, I don't need to re-input this width over. I can just come over here and say, I want to put it right there. That comes really, really handy when you do stuff like this. I want to pop these in 1/4 of an inch, so 0.25. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select this reference point. I'm going to move that in, and then I'm going to go to the other side and go back 1 3/4, or sorry, go back 1/4 of an inch right there. Now I can start drawing some lines. So Bentech uses the snap feature, so you just have to get close to the line. So that one goes there, that one goes there, 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 there. Now I need to do the relief for the heim that I said I wanted to do, and I always forget what half of 2.625 divided by 2 equals, equals 1.312. So I'm going to go back here to point. I'm going to go over 1.312, and I'm going to go up. Let's go up about 0.75. See where that looks? If I come over here, that looks pretty good. Boom. Now I need to draw the arc. So I select arc, a 3-point arc, which means I'm going to go from here, and then to there. And that is the filler plate that I want to make. Now, if I'm going to weld here, I'm going to weld here, I'm going to weld here, so that's all fine. If I wanted to not have a sharp corner right down here, what I could do is I could put a fillet on it. I can auto trim that fillet. I can come down here and let's see what a 1/4 inch fillet looks like. And I would just select and select. You can see that would make that just a little bit smoother. I don't like that. I actually prefer the sharp edge because it's only 1/4 of an inch. So now that you have the filler plate made, you simply go up here, you export it as a DXF file. You name it what you want to name it, tab filler plate, and save it. Okay, and now it has been exported into a DXF. Now we go over to our sheet cam program. Sheet cam is where the part is going to be laid out on the sheet on the table. So if you can imagine, this is a full sheet of steel. That's my entire table bed right there. So when I bring in this one part, new part, last part I made is always at the top of the list. Boom, there it is. Okay, you can see it's just going to take up this tiny little corner of that sheet. Now, This comes into play when if I was making a lot of parts. You saw when I was making the control arms, there was a whole bunch of parts laid out on this sheet. I'm just laying out this one part, so I'm just doing a onesie twosie right now. That's all I need to do. So I'm going to zoom in on it. Right now it's just dropped on the edge of the sheet, so I'm going to move it over and up using the arrows. And now I have to tell the machine what I'm going to cut this out of. So in this case, I'm going to cut it out of 3/16 mild steel using a 60 amp tip. All right, boom, right there. You can see that's the cut. That basically tells me where it's going to go. This is my start right here. If I wanted to change that, if I wanted to move the start, I can move it over to here. And now the start will come up here and cut. If I wanted to put it in the middle here, the problem with it, there'd probably be a little kerf right there, so you wouldn't want that. So I'm actually just gonna, I just leave it right where it was. There it is right there. So now it's gonna cut from there to there to there then. Now you run what's called a post processor on it. That basically brings it, turns it into the G code for the table. I'm gonna replace it. I used to name everything the dates that I was basically cutting it, but then I realized I only cut things out once, so I just name it all today, because I'm gonna cut it out today, and then I just replace it. This is the actual Mach 3 integrator, so this is what talks to the table. So the first thing I need to do is e-stop it, and then I can load my G-code that I just created. That G-code was called today. Boom, boom, boom. Select it, open it. There it is. This tells me where it's going to cut. I want to make sure that auto volt set is enabled. Height control and wait for arc transfer. These are three little things that you want to make sure are lit up each time you use the table. This basically tells me that the table's going to come up here and go over the torch is going to come up here, start cutting here, and then it'll just do the cut. And now I need to find a spot on the sheet where to mark home with, and I do that using the actual Xbox controller. And I'm ready to cut. Actually, you use the Xbox controller to move the torch around as well. You see I go this way, and it moves around. What I'm doing is I'm picking where the home's gonna be. Home's gonna be right there. I'm gonna mark it with the X on the controller. Take a quick look at the plasma, everything's good. Take a look at the machine. You can see that's where X is, so it's gonna jump up there, cut it out. So then you hit the green button, you hit the A, and away we go. Grab it off the table, carry it over to the chassis. I'm actually going to test fit it before I do any grinding on it. Okay. So now this will fit right in there, just like that. Perfect. So it'll fit right in there. A little bit of grinding. I want it to sit on top of these, just like this. So I got two choices. One, I can just sort of, whoops. You can see this is a little bit off down here. So I got two choices. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and just throw a tiny little bend all the way across this. See what that does. It's not gonna need a lot. I've gone ahead, knocked all the dross off with the grinder, and I actually took a little bit of this corner off because of the weld that's up there, and you can see now this filler cap is going to fit perfectly. What you want on these, I want on a little bit of a step for this outside corner weld so I can get good penetration into both pieces of steel. If I just laid it over all the way over to the edge like that, there would be nowhere for the weld to go. So you kind of want to split the difference between the two pieces of material. This is hard to do, holding a camera and showing you this. But so I basically want to step that off like that, tack it into place. Today what I need to do is actually do a little prep work for some filming we need to do later on this week for a Motor Trend series that we're putting together. This is the little sneaky part of TV that you don't get to see. So basically, I've already built this frame section. We had one of our freelancers come in and film part of it. So he was able to get some film of me basically building that. I also was able to take some my GoPros and some other cameras and just get different shots for him. He'll basically give me a shot list of what he wants, and then I'll make it for him. So today what I need to do is build the next part of the chassis that we're building. And so the next part of the chassis, that's basically the back half of the chassis. Next part of the chassis is going to be the middle part of the chassis, and it's going to include a little bit of a belly that goes underneath it. So I brought my fab table over because I'm done working on the bomber. I was able to clean it all off, so the fab table all cleaned off, and then I'm going to build the middle of the chassis. And then once that's done, then I'll be ready to possibly bring the fab table over, or I may just leave the bomber on the fab table and build this on the floor. I'm going to wait and see what I do. Here's a perfect example of why we do things this way, where we don't just have basically, you know, camera guys stand around while I do everything. Right now, this side of the structure, right here, my belly pan, is about 1/8 of an inch high than this side. It's all tacked together. So what I have to do now is spend time basically cutting the tacks off of here, grinding, making sure I don't take too much off of the front or the back. So I want to make sure that this angle here is the same on both of them. Right now, that needs to have a little bit more taken off. And then I'll take this piece of tube and just set it across, put magnifying finder on it, make sure it's level. I want to have it almost dead zero. Right now, it's like 1 degree, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you extrapolate it across like 30 inches like that, that 1 degree difference is 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just gonna spend time right now grinding, tacking. And the only way to measure this is to just keep doing that. I basically have to grind it, set it in place, tack it, check with the angle finder. If it's too high still, gotta grind it some more, cut the tacks, grind it some more, it's just that process. And on TV, that's not how it's going to go. On TV, it's going to go bing, bang, boom, Bob's your Uncle Fanny's rant, it's welded together, and then away we go. But everyone knows that that's not how it actually happens. But it would be really boring to watch a TV show where you actually watched me cut that off 7 times in order to get it on there right. So that's why we do things this way. That's why we go ahead and get everything set in place first, and then bring the film crew in to film it. Behind the scenes. Okay, this took a little over 1.5 hours. I think I cut that tube off of that frame rail probably 5 times, but you can see right now it's basically dancing between 0 and 0.1, just depends how you breathe on it. And so now that it's all clamped, I'll go ahead and weld it. Then I'm gonna make some crossbars for this frame structure, and that's probably where I'm gonna stop. I think after that, we'll wait for the crew to arrive to film me building the rest of that, because the next step after this is honestly slinging it underneath the cab. Had a couple good days filming for Motor Trend. I can't really film a lot of that stuff with this for you guys because a lot of that stuff we basically want to save for Motor Trend because it's their deal, right? It's their stuff. So just know we spent 2 days working on the Colorado, got a bunch of stuff done, super happy with it. If you want to see that vehicle get built, you're going to have to pay attention to both the MotorTrend YouTube channel as well as the MotorTrend app. I'll throw some links for both of those in here where you can find that stuff. Because I think it's going to land on the YouTube channel first as part of their series 4x4 Garage with Christian Hazel. Christian's actually going to come out here to the shop and help out a little bit. So maybe we'll do a little behind the scenes stuff with him when he's here just for fun. But yeah, so now I'm back in the shop just working. I got a couple things I got to do. I have to do some video stuff right now. I'm just setting up I got to do a little talkie bit. So I've set up my little stool there, and that's for one of these little other behind the scenes things that I'm working on. I got to cut some VOs for MotorTrend, and then I'm going to jump on and do some more pre-building on the Colorado. So I'll show you what I'm working on with that. And then honestly, I may even jump back on the Bomber this week, but I do need to take a day and clean the shop. It's the glorious part of being all by yourself in the shop. Someone's got to clean it. It's going to be me. So I might take Friday, maybe just do a quick run around, clean up the shop. So right now I got to do some stuff over there, and then we'll start doing some fab stuff. I'll show you that, and then we'll just keep working away here in the shop. Before I do any more cutting on my fast cut table, I've been kind of neglecting getting in here and cleaning it out. It's a good idea to do it. You can see you get a lot of dross and slag buildup on these slats that run across. It's just something that I like to do probably in between every big job. So I'm gonna do that right now. I'm a little behind. There's a lot of extra junk in there. So I'll clean that out, and then I'll load this new sheet, because this new sheet is what I'm gonna use to cut out some body mounts for the Colorado. Okay, so it's last day of the week. Just finishing up some stuff I got to finish up here in the shop. I'm actually going to try and finish this today. This is the front frame section for the Colorado build that we're doing for that special series for MotorTrend for Ultimate Adventure. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of cleaning up around the shop. I just got to get ready. If you remember, next week we're doing the Mustang, which is back here. It's got to clean up this area. This is where we shoot CarCraft TV, so I got to get this all cleaned up. All the parts are staged, but that crew shows up Monday to start filming on that. And I get asked a lot of the time, what do I listen to when I'm in the shop working? Is it music? Is whatever? And I sometimes listen to music if I'm just doing a whole bunch of welding and I'm just looking to turn my brain off and just concentrate on one thing. But I like to listen to a lot of podcasts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a Spotify playlist for you guys of all my favorite podcasts. I'll figure out how to get it linked in the description so you guys can actually go ahead and see some of those podcasts, listen to them, I should say. Listen to some of those podcasts. Some of them are pretty awesome. A few of my favorites are S-Town. That's a great series. There's another one that followed up behind it that was not as good, but just about as good, and that was the Trojan Horse Letter. I wouldn't put it at the top of my list. I'll list them as my favorite ones, but S-Town's going to be the top of the list. Right behind that's going to be Into the Red Clay. And then for just a quick, dirty, like lots of fun podcast, I like to listen to one called Criminal, which is absolutely amazing. It's just like short 35-minute episodes, and they're hilarious to listen to. So I'll put a link to that so you can go ahead and pick up that playlist. If you got Spotify, you can listen to it. But right now, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of welding and then get that front frame section underneath Colorado. when I'm welding something like this and I want to make sure that it stays straight, I leave it clamped for a while it cools down. I'll just take a little bit of coffee. I don't blow the clamps off right away. I know for a fact that I'm probably gonna have to ratchet strap these pieces together just because I'm only welding at that one end. There's probably a good chance it's gonna spread. But by welding on the inside edge, what'll happen is that weld's gonna make this piece gonna wanna pull in like this. So originally this width was right at, see if I can do this one-handed, was right at like 28 1/8. And you can see it hasn't really moved, which is good. So I'm not going to pull these clamps off at all. I'm gonna leave them and then let it be. I would weld this inside edge here if I had a way to clamp this, but I don't. I built these two frame rails laying on top of each other, so I know they're the same. What I'm gonna do is I'll wait until I actually put this into the chassis, and then I'll weld that up. I also like to do, on all these joints, there'll be a fish plate that goes over all these joints, as well as a fish plate that goes down here. This is gonna meet up underneath the truck on the chassis. Little tip for when I'm welding stuff like this. Let me see if I can get this camera set up. I want you to see the weld so I can show you how I do it. So there's a lot of discussions all the time about like, oh, make little E's, do this, do that. And it's not as simple as that. When I'm welding, what I do is basically, if I'm welding two pieces like this, so this is the edge piece and this is the main piece. I would call this basically my parent metal, because it's gonna take more heat to get into the face of this piece of 3/16 than it is to get into the edge of this piece of 3/16. So if I just took the torch and ran right down the middle, there's a better chance that I'm gonna have undercut on this piece right here. So what I do is I actually watch the molten weld puddle, and what I'll do is I'll focus the arc onto this parent piece of metal, and then I'll whip it up and just grab the edge and then pull it back down, and then whip it up and grab the edge and pull it back down. It's not about making little circles or making little fancy designs. It's about manipulating that molten puddle. What you want to do is you want to make sure that both pieces of material are melting equally. And by whipping that puddle up and just catching the edge of this, that allows the heat to get in here quick, but not so much that you're going to get undercut. I actually have a tiny little bit of undercut. I can feel it right there. It'll be fine because this will all be capped. But if this was my only joint, I might go ahead and add another bead down this side just to eat up that undercut. But you can see that basically I come down here and then I just whip it up and pull it down. And that's all it is. It's practicing that. It's practicing that molten puddle manipulation, which is what you're doing when you're welding. I can't emphasize this enough. I hear it all the time. People are like, oh, just make like a little E or make like a little C or do this. You really need to learn how to read that molten puddle and really watch it and move it into the steel with the MIG gun. You can do it. Even though it's a MIG gun, the electricity and the the heat's coming from that piece of melted wire. So that's what you're using to manipulate the puddle, the actual melted wire when it hits the material. Another couple tips, always wear full PPP, or another couple, here we go. Another couple tips, make sure you always wear full PPE, that's personal protective equipment. That's why I always wear long sleeve shirts. I have some FR rated shirts from Dixon if I'm doing a lot of like laying on my back and welding, but just stuff like this, they're work shirts, they work really, really well. So I'm very happy with them. Long sleeve shirts, gloves, welding helmet. And if you're having trouble seeing the molten puddle, go ahead and grab yourself some reading glasses. You'll see that I'm always kind of dancing between multiple sets of glasses here in the shop. I've got some for when I need to do some work and do some reading, see things up close, and then when I weld, actually step up a couple powers in the glasses. You can get cheater lenses for your helmet, but I personally find that the reading glasses work just a little bit better. I find that the cheater lens, if I get a little bit out of shape with my head, sometimes the diopter inside can sometimes flip and then everything gets out of focus. So I just like to just buy some cheap reading glasses. So I keep a lot of them around. I actually have different powers depending on what I'm gonna do. So if I'm MIG welding, I'll run like a 3 or a 4. And then if I'm TIG welding, I run a 4 to a 4.5. And that just sort of helps me see the puddle a little bit better because I'm getting old. I'm an old dude. So there you go. There's a couple MIG welding tips from this week here in the shop. I'm going to go ahead and let this cool, drink some coffee, and then I'm going to get it up underneath the chassis. So that's a wrap on another week. I got pretty much everything done I wanted to get done. We were able to get some filming taken care of, which was good. I got all the frame done on the Colorado. Actually, before I leave today, I'm going to take care of the upper spring mounts, because this is going to actually have a coil spring front end. I got the front end all mocked up on this truck, which is awesome. I know where the tires are going to sit. I know where the axle's going to go. I need to wait to actually put those in until we film on this truck again. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to go ahead and finish out those coil spring mounts, and then I'll probably start to pre-build some of the mounts for the 3-link on the front. The back is a leaf spring setup. You'll see that on the show on Motor Trend. But right now I'm just going to spend the rest of the day doing a little bit of tidying up, and then that's all we got. I hope you've enjoyed this sort of sneak peek behind the scenes, what's going on here in the shop. Again, let me know, always, like I said, let me know if you like these videos. Let me know in the comments if you like them, if you hate them, what you want to see, what you don't want to see, and then we'll do that. But I'm going to go back here and shoot a little bit of floor.